Disclaimer: this content is intended for a mature audience only. Viewer discretion is advised. The bathroom door cracks open, just a sliver, and soft water whispers splashes against porcelain as dawn's first light filters through a frosted window. In that hushed moment, she stands beneath the steady fall of warm droplets, unaware that the gentle rhythm of her breath will ripple through someone else's quiet world. She is Isabella, 32, gentle and guarded, still holding on to yesterday's grief even as today's curiosity pulses beneath her skin. Across the hallway, Marcus, 35, my husband, is already awake, the faint glow from the bath illuminating his face with calm longing. I awake beside him, Emily, 30, still reeling from the subtle ache of neglect and loneliness, and in that silvery tranquility, our lives begin to cross in ways none of us planned. The tone is tender and taut. There's no shouting, no grand gesture, just the low hum of water and the soft vulnerability of people who've stayed silent for too long. Isabella's voice is like a half-spoken poem, turning inward. Marcus's expression is restrained, carrying the weight of hidden regret. And I, Emily, feel exposed in the most unexpected way, as though the light in that bathroom has uncovered something inside me I hadn't even recognized. Underlying the surface calm is a stirring tension, slow-burning and unspoken. Desire, regret, and yearning swirl around us like mist. Isabella hesitates at the edge of the tub, her shoulders slightly curved, not from shame, but from the weight of unvoiced longing. Marcus watches that curve with quiet intent. And I lie beside him, heart pounding, sensing the shift in the air and recognizing something primal. My husband's attention is elsewhere, drawn by something I cannot name. Romantic realism guides every word. There's no paint-by-numbers passion here, only people shaped by loss, by hope, by the desire to feel seen again. We are all 20-somethings, navigating the fragile edges of commitment and attraction, trying to reconcile the promises we made with the desires we feel now. The emotional temperature rises in small increments, meaningful glances exchanged across spaces, digits brushing accidentally, a shared breath too close to inhale in. Marcus's hand lingers too long on the doorknob of the bathroom. Isabella holds the steam-filled air like a secret she isn't ready to speak. And I sense the fractures in our relationship deepen, even as something compelling pulls us all toward a shared reckoning. That simmering energy crackles in the silence. My pulse picks up. Isabella's warmth under the shower light whispers of lives brushing up against each other, of boundaries shifting. Marcus's gaze holds promises unspoken. And I, Emily, feel the distance between us contracting, as though my world is about to tilt. I close my eyes for a moment, take a steadying breath. When I open them again, Isabella steps out of the shower, wrapped in a towel that trembles against her skin. Marcus meets her at the threshold of steam and shadow. And the door behind me, barely cracked, feels like the edge of everything I thought I knew. The camera would cut there. The next breath, the next move, the next confession, none of it certain. And that's the moment I want you leaning forward for, heart a little tighter, wondering, what comes next? Isabella didn't say a word. She just stood there, dripping, vulnerable, but not apologetic. The towel clung to her in quiet defiance, like she had expected this moment and accepted whatever judgment might come with it. Marcus turned away, almost too quickly, as if the sight of her made something inside him twitch, ache, betray. And I saw all of it. Not just the exchange, but the silence between them. The kind that only exists between people who've already crossed a line, even if they haven't named it yet. I sat up in bed, not out of rage, but wonder. How did we get here? Me, Emily, always the peacemaker, the one who held the threads together even as they frayed. Marcus and I had built a life from predictability. Sunday coffees. Quiet drives. But comfort had turned into distance, and distance into silence. I started talking more to myself than to him. I noticed when he stopped reaching for my hand. But I never said it aloud. I thought maybe he'd just been tired. Now, I saw him awake in a way I hadn't seen in months. And Isabella, her presence was like light under a locked door. She wasn't loud or obvious. But she was there in the small ways that matter. She lingered. She listened. And Marcus, he let her. Later that morning, I found myself walking barefoot into the guest room. Her husband, Ethan, sat at the edge of the bed, shirtless, his head bent like he was praying or grieving. He didn't look up at first. Just ran a hand through his dark hair and said softly, "You saw?" I nodded. My voice caught before it could form words. But he didn't need them. Maybe he'd been carrying that same ache, the same absence. He finally looked at me. Not with accusation, but with shared recognition. That look people give each other when they both realize something has shifted. Something inevitable. I sat beside him. Close enough to feel his warmth. Far enough to respect the line between us, at least for now. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. But something between us did. And the quiet was no longer empty. Ethan's shoulders were broader than I remembered. He'd always seemed quieter, almost reserved, a man who spoke more through stillness than words. Sitting beside him now, I noticed the weight in his posture. The kind of heaviness that doesn't come from one moment, but many years, maybe. "They think we don't notice," he said finally, voice low, almost ashamed of its own honesty. "But we do." I wanted to ask what exactly he'd noticed. The way Marcus had started staying late at work? The shift in Isabella's laughter, brighter when Marcus was around, dimmer when she was alone with Ethan? Or maybe it was something more subtle. A changed rhythm. A glance held too long. A silence too soft. But I didn't ask. Because I'd felt all of it too. The quiet kind of betrayal, the one that sneaks in through kindness, not cruelty. "I used to think love was something you could just hold on to," I said, staring at my own hands. "Like if you kept giving enough, it would be enough." Ethan nodded, his eyes tracing the floor. "But sometimes the giving turns into disappearing." That's what had happened to me, I realized. I'd started giving so much, time, care, patience, that I'd vanished in the process. And Marcus, he stopped looking for me. The silence stretched, not heavy but honest. I felt Ethan shift slightly, his hand brushing against mine. Not deliberate. But not accidental either. I didn't move. In another room, the sound of water running again, faint, distant. Someone was in the shower. Again. Everything in me twisted with that sound. But I didn't want revenge. Not really. What I wanted, was to feel wanted. To be looked at the way Marcus looked at her. Not just with desire, but attention. Soft, full, present. I looked at Ethan. He was still staring forward, jaw clenched, eyes wet but not falling. There was something wounded and beautiful in him. A man who had loved honestly, and was now trying to make sense of what remained. In the hallway, footsteps. Light. Bare. Isabella passed the guest room door, hair wet, towel wrapped high. She paused. Just for a second. Met my eyes through the sliver of open door. Her gaze wasn't smug. It wasn't cruel. It was complicated. Guilt. Relief. Curiosity. Something else I couldn't name yet. She held my stare for a beat too long before walking on, her steps soft, steady, unashamed. Ethan saw it too. He didn't say anything. And maybe that was the beginning of something. Or the end of something else. I didn't know yet. But in that soft tension, in the hush between everything spoken and everything felt, I knew we were all about to make choices that would shape what love meant to each of us. And none of us would come out unchanged. That evening, the four of us sat around the dinner table, quiet, too careful, the clinking of forks louder than anyone's voice. The meal was warm but untouched, like we were all waiting for someone else to make the first move, to break the silence, to speak the truth that was hanging in the air like a storm waiting to fall. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. He kept talking about work, about something trivial he read online. Isabella laughed once, softly, almost like she didn't want to, but did anyway. Her fingers grazed the stem of her wine glass in slow, absent circles, like she was tracing the edges of her own guilt. Ethan was silent. His fork moved across the plate, but he hadn't taken a bite. I felt the air pressing down on me, thick, tight. The kind of pressure that builds before everything breaks. I cleared my throat. So, how long? My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Still, it cut through the room like a thread pulled too tight. Isabella froze. Marcus blinked. Ethan didn't even flinch. He just closed his eyes. Emily, Marcus began, but the sound of my name on his lips felt foreign. He didn't finish the sentence. Isabella's voice came out steadier than I expected. We didn't plan it. That hurt more than a denial. Because I believed her. I know, I whispered, eyes still locked on my plate. That's what makes it worse. Ethan stood then, abruptly, chair scraping back. He left the room without a word. I didn't need to follow. I felt everything he couldn't say. Marcus finally looked at me, but not the way I needed. His eyes were wide with regret, maybe fear, but not love. Not anymore. The ache that lived in my chest opened wider. I turned to Isabella. Did you love him before you realized it? Her eyes shimmered. I think I just needed someone to see me. I swallowed. So did I. And suddenly it all made sense, not the betrayal, but the reason we let ourselves fall into the arms of people who weren't ours. We were lonely. We were tired. We were hungry for someone to see us as more than a habit. Across the hallway, I heard Ethan's door open. His steps slow. Hesitant. I stood up. So did she. But none of us moved. Yet. I didn't follow Ethan at first. Not because I didn't want to, but because I needed a second to breathe. The air around the table had grown too heavy, like we were all sitting beneath an invisible ceiling that was about to cave in. Marcus said nothing more. Isabella barely looked up. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up her glass again, but she didn't drink. I stepped away from the table slowly, my fingers brushing the edge as I passed, grounding myself. My bare feet carried me down the hallway, floorboards creaking beneath every step. When I reached Ethan's door, it was ajar. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, eyes fixed on the floor like it held answers he hadn't found in her eyes. I didn't come in to fix anything, I said softly, lingering at the threshold. He glanced up. Good. I don't think anything's fixable right now. That honesty, it cut, but it comforted. There was no pretending here. No performance. Just two people unraveling in front of each other. I told myself it was just a rough patch, he continued. But I stopped recognizing her. The way she looks at him. I haven't seen that look in years. I stepped in, closing the door behind me. And Marcus, he used to look at me like I was the beginning of his life. Now he looks past me. Through me. Ethan exhaled. And here we are. There was a stillness in the room, not silent, but charged. Like something unspoken was stretching between us, daring one of us to name it. I sat beside him again, closer this time. Our shoulders brushed. He didn't pull away. I don't want revenge, I whispered. Neither do I. But I'm tired, I added, my voice cracking. Tired of pretending it doesn't hurt. Tired of sleeping beside someone who's already somewhere else. Ethan turned to me, slowly. His eyes weren't guarded anymore. They were open, wounded, yes, but soft. Seeing me. I see you, Emily, he said, barely louder than a breath. I see all of you. That was the twist. Not lust. Not impulsive desire. But recognition. The feeling of finally being seen. I reached for his hand, tentative, unsure, but he met mine halfway. His fingers laced with mine like they'd done it before, in another life. We stayed like that for a while, in silence. Then, from down the hallway, Isabella's voice. A low murmur. Followed by Marcus's. Then the sound of a door closing. Not theirs. Our room. Ethan turned toward the door. I felt his hand tighten around mine. Not possessive. Protective. And I realized this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about choice. And we were each about to make one. Ethan and I didn't speak as we walked down the hall. The silence between us wasn't heavy, it was reverent. Like we both knew something had shifted and we were holding it gently, without rushing to name it. We stopped outside the bedroom Marcus and I once shared. The door was closed now. A boundary. A choice. I rested my hand on the frame, just for a moment. No knocking. No intrusion. I didn't need to see what was happening inside to understand it fully. The silence on the other side was louder than any noise. I'm not angry anymore, I said, barely above a whisper. Ethan leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, not in defense, but quiet resignation. Neither am I. I turned to him, unsure if the ache in my chest was grief, or relief. We thought love meant staying no matter what, I murmured. He looked at me then, eyes searching mine. But maybe love means knowing when to let go. And there it was, the truth we'd both avoided, now standing in the soft lamplight between us. I stepped forward, closed the space between us. Not for comfort. Not for desire. But for goodbye. I think I came here thinking I might fall into you, I said, honest to the bone. But you didn't let me. He smiled, softly. Because I knew you deserved to stand. That broke something open in me. Not pain, clarity. The kind that only comes when everything false has been stripped away. We stood in that stillness for a long time, until I turned, walked back to the guest room, the room that would be mine, at least for tonight. I didn't cry. I didn't run. But just as I reached the door, Isabella was there. Quiet. Barefoot. Her eyes red-rimmed, her lips parted like she wanted to speak but hadn't found the words yet. I wasn't trying to steal him, she said, breathless. I was just trying to find myself. I nodded. Then maybe we were both looking for the same thing. And then, without anger, without drama, we passed each other. No bitterness. Just a kind of peace, shaped by truth and time. Later that night, I lay in bed, alone. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lonely. Just free. Morning came gently. Sunlight moved across the floor like forgiveness. I woke to birdsong outside the window, the kind I hadn't noticed in weeks. Maybe months. The kind of softness that feels like a new beginning, even if nothing has really begun. The house was quiet. No tension, no movement. Just the hum of stillness after the storm. Ethan had already gone, left a folded blanket at the foot of the couch and a small note on the kitchen table. Take care of yourself. You deserve that much. I smiled. Not because it was perfect. But because it was kind. Marcus and I didn't talk much that morning. Just quiet nods, a shared cup of coffee at opposite ends of the kitchen. It felt like two people who had once known how to speak to each other, but had since forgotten the language. We didn't blame each other anymore. That part was done. And Isabella, she packed early. I helped her, silently, folding clothes and tucking away what remained. We didn't speak about Marcus. Or Ethan. Or what it meant to have shared something that wasn't ours. Before she left, she paused at the door. I think we were all just trying not to disappear. I nodded. Maybe it's okay that we did. Just for a while. So we could return. She smiled, soft and tired. I hope you do. And then she was gone. I stood in the hallway alone, looking into rooms that had once held secrets, now just holding air and memory. And for the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was still. This wasn't a story about villains. Or victims. It was about what happens when people forget to reach for each other, and how they sometimes find themselves reaching in unexpected places. I didn't know what came next. I didn't need to. But I knew I would start again, wiser, slower, and more honest. And somewhere, that would be enough. Sometimes the heart breaks not to end love, but to teach us how to truly hold it.